everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to do sourdough starter, and this is a part of the collaboration with Tammy, Mountain Grandma, and myself. And so I've got my handy dandy list here of things that I wanted to talk to you about, and then I'm going to show you how to start your starter and feed it, and then other videos I will follow up on. Even though it's probably going to be after the collab, I'll include it in the playlist. So again, this is just, we want to motivate people to do starter. So many people say to me they're so intimidated by starter and they can't do it. Take can't out of your vocabulary because you're going to do it if you want to. And the reality of it is what's the big deal if you fail? We all fail at stuff. It's a learning moment. So let's go through the basics and tell you what we're going to do. So first off, I'm not an expert. I've been doing sourdough for the past year or so, and I love it, but I'm not an expert. The other thing is realize everybody does it differently. So this is how I do it. So let me talk the basics. First off, you need a good all-purpose flour, unbleached, chemical-free. As chemical-free as you can find it. Next, you're gonna need some water. I use my well water because that's what we have. You can use bottled water if you're on city water. I've heard of people taking their city water, putting it in a jar, letting it sit overnight, and the chlorine evaporates. I don't know about that. I know it's true, but I don't know if it works for sourdough. The other thing you're gonna need is a clean jar. I've used an old spaghetti sauce jar that I have sterilized, and just keep in mind, whatever cap you put on top should not be screwed on. You can lay it on there loosely, or you could cover it with a cheesecloth and a rubber band, or you could use a ball canning jar or a canning jar and just sit the lid on it, not the band. And I'm gonna tell you why soon. So let's get starting our sourdough starter. Ignore the huge mess that is my kitchen right now, but life has been kind of busy. So here's the clean jar. I have all my stuff here. Let's get going and make this really easy. The thing to remember is equal parts all-purpose flour and equal parts water. I am going to do 20 grams of flour to 20 grams of water. Only because I don't want to waste it. It may take a week for mine to bubble up and get to the point where I'm ready to use it. So why waste it? So here's my 20 grams of flour, putting it in my clean jar. I have 20 grams of flour in my jar, and I'm going to do 20 grams of water. I'm using tap water. I use it a little bit warm. You can use it room temperature. And I'm going to mix this up. And some say, you know, the consistency of pancake batter and so on. But just keep this simple. I'm looking at this. It needs to be a little thinner for me. And I am mixing it really, really well. You can start with a larger amount. I'm just trying to keep it manageable for folks. So that's about the consistency I want. I'm going to bring you back tomorrow and we're going to feed it. What I'm going to do now is show you how I store it overnight. Now, my sourdough glass jar came with both a lid and a cover. You can use a regular ball jar lid or 4 jars lid, whatever you have, a canning lid. Keep in mind, you don't want to screw it on because at some point your sourdough may rise over the size of your jar. So don't screw it on. So since I have this handy dandy thing, I'm going to put it on top. So there it is. I'm going to let it sit. It's not going to bubble over overnight. But again, just don't screw the lid on. That's the biggest thing. We'll be back tomorrow and I'll show you how to feed it. Here's my sourdough starter that we started yesterday. I had that band on there. You can see it did not rise much at all. Now we're gonna do the feeding of the starter. Keep in mind, for the first 7 days, I am going to keep my amount small because in colder weather, I find that's easier for me to get a rise. But also, I'm going to discard the sourdough discard, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Helps if I hit the button. Anyway, what I did was I had 70 grams of starter that I put in here, and I reduced it to 50. I'm going to take my 50 grams of starter, put it back in my jar, and then I am going to get 50 grams of flour, 50 grams of water. Drums. So my 50 grams of starters in here, 50 grams of flour, 50 grams of water. Gonna give this a really good mix. What happened to the discard? I didn't have a lot. I put it on a paper towel. I'm gonna throw it in the trash for the first 7 days. The reason why, when I was taught, was that that will rid the sourdough starter of bad bacteria. In the future, when you get past 7 days, you will be able to keep your sourdough discard and it will grow, and you will be able to use it for discard recipes. Let me give this a good mix and I'll be right back. Some people say not to use a metal spoon. Well, maybe that's the case, but I've used a metal spoon and not had a problem. In fact, I usually use a butter knife when I'm stirring mine. But since I got this kit, I'm using this. There it is, my sourdough's been fed. Here is my cover, like I showed you the last time. I will not be screwing it on, just setting it on. And what I'm gonna do is just put this in over here on the side on my counter, and I will put the band on again, even though I have the measurements. Just makes my life easier. I know it's a feeding band, but if I'm busy and I can't remember where I was at, I level the top of the band with the top of the starter. That way I can see if it's rising. I'm gonna let it sit here overnight, and let's talk a little bit more about sourdough. So your ratio to start is 1 part flour to 1 part water on day 1. Feeding after that is always going to be 1 part flour to 1 part water to 1 part starter. Also, keep in mind, if your starter is rising, it is considered fed. If it is dropping, it is considered hungry. Anything over the 1 part of starter, because you always want to have a little bit of discard or larger, you're going to toss it in the garbage the first 7 days so it rids the sourdough starter of bad bacteria. After 7 days, you're going to take the excess discard and put it in a jar in the fridge for recipes. The other thing that I was taught was do not dump starter discard down your drain. The stuff turns into the hardest, most unbelievable, disgusting stuff in your drain. Put it in the garbage the first 7 days and then put it in a jar. And if you end up tossing your starter because you fail, toss it in the garbage. Don't dump it down your drain. Same thing with rinsing anything that has sourdough discard in it. Get it soaking in water right away or wash it right away, because otherwise that stuff is like glue. You'll see that both times I added a little extra water. It's okay, just do a little bit. And again, it's not a big deal if you do too much. The next day you'll do less. It's okay. Just keep in mind, it is not near as hard or intimidating as everybody makes it out to be, okay? So I'm gonna get going. I want you to start your starter. Good luck. You got this. Don't worry about making mistakes. And here's the thing. Do that for the first 7 days. I'll be back with another video of how my starter is going. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and any questions, let me know down below.